ready.
Well, we're missing Councilman Moy and Dr.
He ran home for a minute, he had to run off.
Okay,
He'll be right back.
okay.
We are being recorded now. Okay, all right.
He'll be right back.
We got a quorum.
Well, fortunately, he doesn't have far to go.
Right, we got a quorum, and we can start. We're gonna start on time.
Okay.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the Winterville Town Council Vision Setting Meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, January the 26th. January 28th, 2025, and the time now is 5:33. Invocation tonight will be given by Councilwoman Robinson, and the blessing also will be given by Councilwoman Robinson.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks. We give thanks for our community. We give thanks for the ability to be here tonight and set a vision for our council for the next year. We ask you to bless the food that it may be nourishment for our bodies.
Amen.
Thank you, Councilwoman Robinson. We'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get to the approval of the agenda, do we need to do a roll call?
I'll leave that up to council. We're not utilizing, as you can tell, our voting software because I didn't know whether there would be any votes to be had this evening. So I'll leave that up to council as to whether you all want a roll call.
Okay. Yes, let's just do a roll call so we can make sure who's here and who's on their way. Okay.
Okay, I'll just go down the line. Mayor Hines.
Here.
Councilwoman Robertson.
Here.
Councilwoman Smith.
Here.
Councilwoman Hawkins.
Here.
Understand Councilman Moy is, Mayor Pro Tem Moy is here, and he'll be present at the table shortly. I am not sure about Councilwoman Harrell, but I'm sure she's coming.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody here. Of course, I'm Mayor Hines. Tonight, we're here to set our vision for 2025 and on. Next up will be the approval of the agenda.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion made by Councilwoman Robinson, second by Councilwoman Smith to approve the agenda as is. Any question? If none, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next up, we have Attorney Lasser to speak to us about subordination agreement with Christ Covenant Church.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This afternoon, I'll begin at the end, then move back to the beginning. I'm actually not going to be asking for any vote from y'all tonight for the reason that I'll get to in just a moment, but because this matter is going to come back before us probably at your February meeting, I asked the mayor if it's okay, even though I'm not asking for any vote, that I spend just a few minutes talking to you about this issue. As it says on the agenda, this is a subordination agreement from Christ Covenant Church. A little bit of background: in 2014, the town and Christ Covenant Church signed an infrastructure financing agreement through which the school was to pay the town approximately $125,000 because the town was making certain improvements to the infrastructure, water and sewer primarily, to accommodate the school. This is when, of course, the school was being constructed and getting off the ground. The school paid $40,000 in advance, but financed with the town $85,000. And in January of 2016, Christ Covenant School signed a promissory note and deed of trust with the town for the $85,000. So it was solemnized with a note and with a deed of trust. The annual payments are $9,949.34. They're only making one payment a year. The first payment was at 16, and it was 10 years. So the actual last payment is going to be this August 13th of 2025, the last payment of $9,949.34. Now, recently, Christ Covenant School has applied for and received a loan from First Bank for $4.3 million. First Bank placed a condition to them giving the loan to the school to require that the 2016 deed of trust between the town and Christ Covenant School be subordinated to the new First Bank loan to the school. And quite honestly, subordinating an existing loan to a new loan, especially when the new loan is quite a bit greater than the existing loan, that's not unusual for the bank to ask for a subordination agreement. Pursuant to the 2015 infrastructure financing contract between the town and the school, there's two paragraphs that speak to the subordination of future loans, and in the agreement, essentially the town agreed to subordinate its deed of trust to any future school construction loans or deeds of trust, and that's what this is. This is a construction loan, this $5.3 million. So the town has agreed to subordinate. However, we received the subordination agreement on the 15th of January, and upon looking at it, and most of it is very similar, it's very standard, but there is a paragraph 2, subparagraph A, wherein the, give me just a second, if you'll forgive me, I'll read to you if you don't mind. This paragraph is unusual, and it says, except as otherwise provided herein, until the First Bank loan shall be paid and satisfied in full. Remember, the First Bank loan is $5.3 million. I don't know the term of it, but it's not going to be short, it's going to be long. It says, until the First Bank loan shall be paid and satisfied in full, the town shall not receive or collect directly or indirectly any amount upon the town loan. That's the loan of $85,000. Then it says, provided, however, that as long as no event of default has occurred or is continuing under the First Bank loan, or would exist immediately after the making of payment, borrower, which is the school, borrower may make regularly scheduled payments of principal interest to the town. Well, I just be honest with you, I don't like that language. We're down to our last payment. They need to pay us our last payment. So when I saw that, I emailed the attorney that's representing the school and told him that, you know, I thought that paragraph needed to be removed. And he has emailed the bank. This document was drafted. Some lawyers will draft subordination agreements. Sometimes the bank does. This is one that the bank drafted. And he has requested the bank to agree to remove that paragraph, and we have not heard back. So my suggestion, I wanted to talk with you so we could just sort of talk about it. It's going to come back around. You know, they clearly will get the loan, and the bank will want us to subordinate, but I think that language needs to be removed. With that language removed, what that means is our loan, which is first in time, is recorded in 2016 as a new one, we've got priority over them. But by subordinating it, we're agreed that our loan will be moved down on the priority list and will be behind theirs. And again, that's very common. That in and of itself doesn't bother me. We see that all the time. I just don't like the language that sort of acts like, well, they may pay us or may not, and all. So I'll be glad to answer any question having me. I would anticipate the next day or two we'll work through this, and I'll be bringing back to you probably at your February meeting a revised subordination agreement with that language removed. Or if not, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So in other words, they should be, if we keep it in the first position, they should be paying us out by August, correct?
That's right. Per our note and per our deed of trust, their last payment is due on August the 13th of this of this year.
And Keen, that's regardless of whether we're in the first or second position.
That's correct.
Right.
And again, I'm sort of having to surmise some of this because I wasn't, I didn't attend the loan that the bank had, or the school had. But the bank loaning them 4.3, they want to make sure that, if there would be a default, they would be in first position, we'd be in second. The simple fact is, though, they're going to pay us off in, 7 months? So they won't even be making the regular payments. They'll just be making interest payments during the construction period.
Right.
So honestly, one would say, why do you even need this? Because we've only got 7 months left. I think the banks are just, this is the way we want it subordinated.
Okay.
Keen, they were given the option to pay right now.
But absolutely, and when this first came up, Anthony and I were talking about it, and I sent an email to him and said, well, since you've only got one payment left, why don't you just go ahead and pay it off? And they didn't respond to the email.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? If not,
I like to see it, make it clear that that's what we expect, that payment to be fulfilled, requirements for in August.
Yes,
That's what we're looking at. Anthony knows I've been shooting questions all week about it because I didn't understand it. But that was what we're agreeing to, that's why I can agree to what you said, as far as that last payment is August, pay it off, and we'll be through with that.
yes, ma'am. And that's what one of the emails to the attorney today, I told him, I said, we're at the last payment. The town expects that payment to be made, and this will end our relationship. So, yes, ma'am.
Do they need to be placed into a motion?
I don't think so. No, sir. I mean, I'll certainly take your guidance. That's why I wanted us to talk. I'll take your guidance tonight. But my guess is the way this is going to play out is they're going to want a subordination agreement signed. And again, that's in and of itself, it's not unusual. We just need to get the language removed that says that they, if there's not a due default, they may make the payment, and we just take that language out, which means that that payment will be due in August of this year, paid in full.
okay. Any other questions? Anybody else have any? Council has any other questions? If not, I'd like to take this moment to welcome Dr. Harrell and Mayor Pro Tem Moy. Of course, we started because we had the motion, quorum, so we want to start on time. So, but just want to welcome y'all and count y'all present. Okay, all right. King, is that?
Yes, sir, that's all I had, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Rebecca Cavanis, Executive Director of the Winterville Chamber of Commerce, along with Ms. Terry Parker,
Thank you, sir.
Town Manager.
So I do have printouts.
So if I may, while Rebecca's handing that out, Rebecca and myself, the mayor has had some of this conversation. I know that we've been talking about a potential for a project and a partnership with the chamber. And I felt like because tonight is the vision setting for council, it might be prudent for Rebecca to come and sort of outline the project that we've been talking about, that the chamber has in mind, and bring council into the discussion to see how you all feel about moving forward on the project in the future. And I'll turn it over to Rebecca.
All right, very good. Do I need to use the microphone?
Probably, because we are recording.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
That works very well. Okay, so yeah, I approached Terry and Ricky about this project a little while ago. Essentially, we have the opportunity to open up what would be, I've been kind of calling it a visitor and business center, a visitor and business hub. This is somewhat location specific at the moment, but if things don't happen the way that I'm hoping that they'll happen, it is a concept that I think that we should consider for the future regardless. But as far as location is concerned, this would be where the Vernon White property is now. So the owner of this property has been working on this project for quite some time for a hotel in this location as well as retail spaces. I don't think that this is news to any of you. And this was something that I kind of spoke out into the universe as I do, as a future long-term potential goal of mine, that I'd love to see the chamber in some sort of facility that we're operating that is both kind of community facing, and something that can be, you know, supported by the town, a visitor center that would be something that people could actually come to. Right now, I know I get a lot of calls, and I suspect Don ends up getting a lot of calls from people coming to the area. They kind of pop by and they say, oh, I'm looking for a map, I'm looking for a visitor guide, I'm looking for something. And it's usually kind of spur of the moment that I get those calls. And as it stands right now, I don't have an office space that's very community facing. I do have an office that I'm able to operate, you know, meetings out of, things like that, but you need badged access. It's not very accessible. I'm usually giving people directions on the phone last minute because they're going to the wrong location. Again, it's just not really a visitor space. So if we were able to do something like this, it would be kind of in a central location, it would be noticeable both for the visitors, and then as far as the chamber side of things, obviously something for the businesses. It is not unusual, or at least out of the ordinary, I should say, that a Chamber of Commerce operates a visitor center. Ayton does it, Farmville does it, Washington does it, Wilson does it. Those are just ones that are right here close to us that I'm naming. Historically, this is not an unusual thing, but the concept that I have for it is a little bit creative because I was trying to check a lot of boxes for what I see as needs in our community, needs for the town, and needs for our chamber. So co-working spaces are kind of essentially a part of our future. I think that we're going to see more and more of these types of spaces coming to be. I know of, you know, 2 of them in Greenville and 1 in Farmville at least. But these spaces essentially add an option for individuals conducting business to do so in an environment that is outside of their home. We have a lot of people that work from home that need to get out of their house in order to actually be productive, especially for those of us who have children, that you need to be able to go somewhere you can actually have that peace. But sitting in a coffee shop or something like that isn't always a great option for you. So these co-working spaces have kind of become a more common thing, especially in bigger cities and, you know, areas like that. So this could potentially check that box. So my vision has become, and that's where this kind of front page comes into play, my vision has become a front portion being a visitor center where you can simply pop in, you can see maps and magazines, information about Winterville, maybe history things. I've gotten some information and pledges from the Convention and Visitors Bureau with Visit Greenville NC to help us if we do, you know, this comes to fruition, this project, we would be able to fill this with, you know, necessary documentation, maybe even a kiosk that's something interactive where people could learn about the area. And then obviously it would be like an office space for me to be able to staff during those hours. People can come in for questions for any reason whatsoever. And then beyond this is this co-working space. There are offices that would be subletted to individuals, again, either working from home or mobile home-based businesses, as well as a conference room that could be rented out both by the chamber members and by those who rent this facility. All of those to kind of help offset the costs of, you know, the monthly recurring costs otherwise, security, utilities, cleaning, et cetera. So my hope with something like this, and the reason that I came to the town about it, the chamber alone does not have the resources to do something like this. In fact, if the chamber was doing it alone, I don't think I'd be looking at a visitor center at all. I'd be focusing strictly on, okay, if I want to do just an office space for the chamber, something that I think it would be a little bit more accessible to the public. But if I want this to be something really cool and something that people want to come to, this is how I see it coming to be. My kind of proposal when I came to Terry and Ricky and my ask for guidance was, for the town and the chamber to enter into a contract together for us to operate this visitor center in exchange for the town covering the cost of rent, because that's how I see it playing out. Now, there's a lot of, I guess, area for direction from council and what would make sense, if this would make sense at all. But I did put together, obviously, a bunch of information here. I've done a lot of homework on this, but I also, without the guidance of the town and what the preference would be, there's a lot of homework I could still do to figure out what makes the most sense.
Rebecca, can you, and if I missed it, I apologize, speak to what estimated percentage of the membership of the chamber is either work from home or would need some type of space like this?
Yeah, so without actually like counting up and doing the math, I would probably estimate maybe 20–25% of our businesses are mobile or home-based, and that's just within our membership, of course. Who knows how many more obviously are in Winterville or in Pitt County as a whole, but I would imagine it's a significant number. And I guess for reference too, right now our membership lies at, I think it's about 130.
Again, I think as we've been talking about plans for the future and ways to grow the town, be visible, be available, we have pieces and parts throughout. Rebecca's down at the Ops Center. We've got Stephen and Tristan up here at Town Hall. You know, Don's at Town Hall, Anthony's at the Ops Center, I'm at Town Hall, and we're all happy and willing to help people on the regular. We get our Winterville magazines, and we try to work with Rebecca to get those passed out everywhere we can. Do a lot of email and phone calling, et cetera, but when it comes down to a pinpoint place of business where people can go get, we've talked about maps, actual maps in your hand, or ask about space available, that kind of thing. This would be somewhere that someone could go in a very visible location if this location pans out, or look for another visible location where it's almost like a one-stop shop. So let's say, for instance, it could come to fruition on the Vernon White property if a hotel is successfully constructed over there, and then there's meeting space over there, then it also would be available for people coming into town, whether they're doing business with the town, Pitt community, whomever, and find out more about town. So it's sort of a, I guess we're at a 10,000-foot view in chatting about it, but seeing as we're growing and continuing to grow, it would be a way to potentially partnership and help go to that next step, so to speak, because we do have Aden, we do have Farmville, we do have other small places in Pitt County that already have a similar, not exactly type of operation, but.
And too, something to mention that I didn't, just to put things into perspective for why this location specifically, the property owner is willing to work with us to outfit the space specific to our needs within, you know, reasonable limits, without us having to pay anything in upfront costs. So part of what I have in this kind of project costing that's on this last page includes what it would look like to upfit that building, or unit, not the entire building. And again, this is something that we've been in discussion with, and he said, you know, if you're looking at just doing, you know, office spaces, bathrooms, these kinds of things, you're not putting in a commercial kitchen, there's nothing exorbitant that you're looking at cost-wise. This is something that either we could cover, or we could, you know, work out some sort of cost arrangement, or if there's a threshold that I set, you know, say he says, oh, I'm not gonna pay anything over $50,000 out of pocket for it, but everything over that, we could, you know, figure into your rent costs over time, or things like that, where I just don't know of anybody else who would be willing to do that. So the opportunity here is pretty incredible, what he's offering us, and then the rest is kind of up to us to figure out.
That was sort of approached and discussed with Rebecca outside of the town involvement. I think that, though, once we talked about the concept, whether the location pans out or not, we think it's important enough to loop council in to try to gain your thoughts and see if this is something you all might be interested in continuing to look at and potentially pursue moving forward.
I think it's a great idea, and I think if it sounds like that property owner is very willing to work with us, But even more than that, that is a prime location for it. I mean, right there as you're entering the town at a major, that would be amazing if it all came to fruition.
Yes, when me and Rebecca talked about it, that's the first thing I thought about too, because I think we need to change our footprint a little bit, having the chamber out front, having a visitor center, especially now, looking at, we're gonna be getting a hotel, because that means there's more visitors. More visitors you get, more inquiry, people gonna wanna know about the town, wanna know eateries, or, just places to go. So, when we talked about it, I thought it was a great idea. And then too, having space, I think I get a lot of calls about space. Do you have space? Do you just have drop-in space, or, something of that nature? As a matter of fact, got an email last night, someone looking for some space.
I think everybody may have gotten that.
I think, yeah, the
Meeting
full
space.
council get that email about meeting space. So you're seeing, we're getting, people that are actually not in our town that are looking for space. And so, having something like this, maybe, that could give them an opportunity to come over there and maybe rent some space or whatever, but I think it'll be a great opportunity for us, and I like the word partnership. And I think as we now getting ready to turn the curve, we're gonna have to look at a whole lot of partnerships for a lot of things, because I don't think funding is gonna be that readily available here. So we're gonna have to be very creative. That's just my thought.
And could I ask Rebecca to talk a little bit about your partnership with the small business group at Pitt?
Yeah, so Pitt Community College's Small Business Center, the director, Haley Nobles, has pledged her support of this. So part of my hope with funding this, some of the upfront costs, we'll look at applying for grants. There are grants available for incubation spaces. Incubation spaces are co-working spaces, but they have like education opportunities for budding entrepreneurs. So it's where you can kind of prove that you're helping people start their business. So kind of an easy resource at our disposal is the Small Business Center. So Haley has said that she would be more than glad to host like monthly workshops at this center for us. This would be something that would be accessible to anybody in the public. So, the Small Business Center is already doing those types of things at Pitt Community College, but sometimes when you take it out of the college atmosphere, you get more people who attend. I've just firsthand seen that, some of the things that we have hosted, but that's definitely something that's gonna play into this, regardless of if the grant part pans out. I think that is helpful to our community.
So what are the plans for this piece of property? I know that I heard you tell, and what else is still planned?
I was looking for Steve.
It's a retail space, and yeah.
I think Stephen must be helping with food, but,
Like our shopping center.
yeah.
Retail
Yeah.
space.
I know retail space, convention center.
Meeting
convention.
space,
So this would be
And
like
hotel,
part of
right.
that concept.
So this would actually be in the retail spaces. So depending on what happens, we could dictate how much space we want and where we would want it located. So if, this concept is off of like 1,800 square feet, because that's, a roughly average amount for like a space in a, facility like this. But say we wanted something that was going to be larger than what the other units are. We have some flexibility right now, being that nothing is actually set in stone. We could dictate those things now. If we wanted something insane, we want to say we want 5,000 square feet, we'll be in the center of this, whatever. We could say those things as of now within reason.
Are the grounds being preserved? I know it was like nice flower garden, outside space there. Brick and stuff.
Honestly, I'm not positive on that. My assumption, I believe that the intention is for the house to come down, and I don't know how much of that can be preserved.
it looks like it's going to be a total redo of that entire space. You see a lot of, they finally have a contractor in there addressing the tree debris. And that is a pretty massive job, it looks like in and of itself, but you don't really realize, or I didn't, how big that property is until you actually get in there and take a look. But yeah, my understanding is that it will all change.
There's 14 acres in it. Total.
I did also want to say that Rebecca when she came to discuss with me, it was made clear early on that they were not asking that this would take the place of the non-town agency funding that the town gives the chamber. That covers Rebecca's salary, as you all know, and some of their operations. This would be a project and a partnership in addition to that. So I just wanted to be transparent about that.
And while you've reminded me, because I had a note to mention that, we had a discussion last year about moving the chamber into our regular budget and removing it from the non-town agencies, because it is a vital part of our community.
And certainly, we stand ready to assist with that, and if so, then theoretically, that becomes a line item or whatnot. If the town chooses to enter into the agreement, then that money could be put in that line item on top.
Okay.
So I think this was sort of a first introduction, if you will, and so I wanted to have Rebecca here. I know she has a 6:30 meeting, but to maybe get your initial thoughts.
And the radio station I emailed you about, she called me, she can't leave Green because of the funding for GPAC. She runs GPAC, and since she's getting that funding, she can't leave Green. So Stephen, she can't leave Green, so that's that. She's been trying to come to Winterville anyway. It's actually, but she can't. I just want to let you know.
So, you done? Councilwoman Robertson,
That's right.
are you done?
Yeah.
So, thank you for bringing that before us in terms of this prospective business center. My question is, we've had a discussion about a multi-purpose center for quite a while now. I'd like to know, how could we think about integrating the business center into the multi-purpose center as opposed to putting monies into a business center where we're still in a process of having a multi-purpose center be established. And in terms of the multi-purpose center, offices, businesses, the layout and the architecture, which I am seeing could prospectively be part of that. So as opposed to jumping over that, I'd like for us to discuss that.
Sure.
As this is a vision setting, and what are we doing in terms of the multi-purpose center to make that available for spaces such as this?
So I will just tell you, you all will be getting your final presentation on the two plans that the town's been working on with McGill and Associates at your regular meeting this month, or I'm sorry, February. And I think you all have individually seen that basically the thoughts and ideas that council has had, I think we listed it. There wasn't any handout, Councilwoman Hawkins. It was just what was on the call. So there wasn't anything handed out to council. There will be, you will see these documents when you receive the plan. To make a long story short, it certainly could be considered with the multipurpose facility, because we haven't gotten to the point yet where you all have determined what's going to be in the building. Now, there are a couple of concept plans that you all will see, have an opportunity to discuss, and Diane, feel free to jump in if I miss anything. When you're presented the site-specific master plan, I think some office space is included in that. Obviously, various and sundry recreational spaces are included there. I don't think currently any plans for co-op space or rental meeting space is included currently, but it's certainly not to say it couldn't be. Did that answer your question? In terms, it certainly can be on the table for discussion.
Yeah, it did somewhat, but seeing the business plan, seeing the two plans would give us a full scope of what we're looking at. And again, this is very pertinent that we look at the multipurpose center. Ms. Cavendish, you present a well-rounded presentation in terms of reasonings for it, in terms of the location and such for travel and visit space. And we're comparing with Farmville and Greenville and the other, in Aden, I would say that they also have like community buildings and such. So if they have that visiting space in addition to that, that is something that they put afterwards. I don't know in terms of when each one was erected, but I'd like for us in Winterville to think about this plan that has been in place for 19 years now, and just we need to be abreast of that. If the space is available, fine, but we need to prioritize the multi-purpose center and what spaces and opportunities that can hold. That would also drive people to the multi-purpose center and prospectively have rented spaces in there. We need to look at the layout and have that in front of us prior to making any concrete decision.
Yes, and please keep in mind, we're not coming for any concrete decisions tonight. It's simply for the introduction of the concept, and you all will be certainly working on formulating what that building looks like. So I don't think, other than the acreage of the parcel itself, I don't think anything's necessarily off the table.
Councilman Moore.
Yes, I like to sort of like piggyback what Councilman Hawkins speaking of was that we do have land, and then we have a vision that we're going to have some other opportunity for space. What we're speaking here is rental property. Even though I love the location is perfect, you know. But that is something that you won't ever own. In mind with the multi-purpose building or some other place that we might have that is available, that the town might own the property itself, that we might be able to build something in future, we have ownership. You know, the way it look, if we go that route that we are speaking of, there's no ownership behind that, even though we have a business. And I think that, yes, I think that it will, we could expose ourselves quite a bit by being in that location, you know, very commercial. You got Sam's right there. I mean, you got Lowe's and everything almost walking distance. And hopefully the multi-purpose building will be kind of like in the area also. So that's the reason why I say I was sort of like piggybacking a little bit, if you want to say piggybacking on what Councilman Hawkins was speaking of. Yes. But I know this right here is just conversation right now, the idea, and I think it would be a great idea, something that we need to look into. I think for future growth. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Dr. Herrera.
So I'd just like to say thank you for bringing this concept forward, and I just look forward to the conceptualization of it all, so thank you.
Anyone else Not, Ms. Rebecca, thank you for sharing this with us. And I know you have somewhere else that you gotta be. We appreciate you coming in, taking your time. Before we, I'm sorry. Okay. Before we go into break for dinner, I'd just like to say this here. To the council, while you're having your break for dinner, I want you to keep in mind to think about this right here as we go. Tonight is the vision setting meeting, okay? So I want us to keep in mind, what do we envision, or where do we envision ourselves in the next 2 years? What do we see as, like, I hate to even say the word, low-hanging fruit that we can accomplish and get something done in the next 2 years? Then keep in mind where we would like to see ourselves or the town in the next 5 to 7 years as a vision. Because again, tonight is a vision setting meeting. And as Rebecca just talked about something then, that could be total a vision. And understand, you know, as I said earlier, partnership, because you're looking at something here that basically someone else is taking the brunt of building, that we don't have to come up with the cost to build. I know we're talking about the multi-purpose center. I keep hearing that, but take in consideration, we just purchased land for the multi-purpose center, and let me get it, I want to be right, because I keep hearing this too. It hasn't been 19 years. The concept hasn't been 19 years. It hasn't been 19 years. We talked about it, but it hasn't been 19 years. We now can put it into existence because we have the purchase of the land. You can't do anything until you have the land. So now we can start planning for it, but it hasn't been totality of 19 years. So kind of keep those things in mind. Again, we want to make sure that we can look at what can happen in 2 years. Then we also need to look at where we want to take the town from 5 to 7 years as far as a vision, okay? And with that, we can take a break for dinner.
May I need to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
If you say that it has not been spoken about for 19 years, last year during the vision setting meeting, as well as another time, and I can go back, I have to go back in the minutes, it was concretely spoke about by 2 council persons that we have been speaking about a multi-purpose center for 18 years. Now, this is an additional year, so unless they are in error and documentation is in error, it has been spoken about. Now, a purchase of land is an extension of that vision, but it has been spoken about for 18 years, and the town of Winterville does not have a multi-purpose or community center. So when I speak to the fact and continue to speak to the fact that there is not a multi-purpose center that has been established, that is, I'm not coming up with that unless someone can correct me, where did the 18 years come from in discussion, and so that I can be clarified in what I'm speaking of and transparent, because I don't want to be saying anything without factualization. So this was spoken about several times in terms of being a concept and a mark or a goal for 18 years. And now this vision setting in 2025 makes it an additional year. So I just want to be clear that we don't conclude a conversation as if I'm in error or as if I'm dragging something along. I want us to be a town of robust conversation and completion and action in what we're talking about, because the people of the town have heard 18 years. So now, if we're not 18 years, where did it begin and where is it going to end? And that was the premise of me saying it. Rebecca Cavanis, and the vision and presentation was amazing. And so what I did say is, how can this be integrated or looked at? And we sat here at a vision setting last year and said it was 18 years. So I just want to be clear, or somebody correct me, because I'm not in error.
It has been part of our comprehensive recreation plan for that period of time.
Thank you.
For that period of time, and building. It's been.
And it's been in previous plans, and it has been talked about in terms of a goal. I think maybe it's perception, so I can only speak to 15 years, but of it that I've been here. So it has been, whether it's been called a gymnasium, it's been called indoor recreation facilities, it's been called additional meeting space. So I think it's sort of been on the periphery of, we definitely need something, but it's really been more, I would say in the last 5 to 6 years, that it's started to become more of a reality, if that makes sense. So I do think the actual need for additional facilities has definitely been talked about. I know Councilwoman Robertson, Mayor Pro Tem Moy definitely know that it's been talked about, but not really in any formalized manner until more recently, is the best way I can put it. I can't speak before what happened the 3 years before 15, but I would assume the same kind of discussions. And you're right, it's been going to be in this plan, it's been in previous plans as, a long-term goal for the town.
Thank you, I just wanted that clarified.
Thank you.
Can shed a little bit of history on it.
There you go, you've been around a long time.
The town, it's been a very iterative process, and I believe it was first established in a study that was done, a recreation study that Councilwoman Robertson was speaking of, and I think there were multiple attempts to historically make it happen. In other words, there were a couple times we tried to purchase the zone out off Reedy Branch Road where the softball complex is. There's been other times where they've tried to find land. And then more recently, we finally found a piece of land that was probably more ideally situated for access. And so that's when, when that conversation came about, it picked up steam for building one instead of buying one that was already in existence. But there has been, it's been hot and cold with various boards, with various opportunities. And it has been kind of this iterative process of up and down over the years of trying to, but not ever really getting across the hurdle, so to speak. So just a little bit of history there.
And that's good, and I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilwoman Robertson, there has never been a very, what I would consider a collective absolute on what that looked like by the council. So, like I said, some people refer to it as gymnasium. I think you all are making more forward progress towards figuring out what that looks like, and I almost have to credit the mayor and the term multipurpose center or facility, because he was talking about USDA funding and the kind of, in their building section of USDA, that they really look toward multipurpose facilities that do more than just recreation.
That was in 2017,
Right.
when I came on
Right.
to the council, because everybody was saying gym, and
Right.
that's when we changed it to multipurpose.
And then you all started to talk about wanting to maybe see some additional
Right.
things, cultural art type
Because
activities, et cetera.
It went from then being a gymnasium to a multipurpose,
right.
where you could build out more to it and actually getting funding for a project versus just having a gymnasium. And so that's where we came up with the word multi-purpose. So that's why I was saying it hasn't been 19 years, because if you go back and look, I know what you're saying, 18 years, man, 19, but the thing of it was, when I came on, like I said, in 2017, we went from being a gym to a multi-purpose, because that gives you more chance to build out stuff versus just having a gym with some hoops in it and whatnot. So that's how we came up with the multi-purpose. So, but thank you though. So if there's not any more, we can now take a break and go into dinner.
Please, can we have more than 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's
Thank
do
you.
20. How about that?
You know, the mayor always says 5-minute
20
dinner
minutes.
break.
We're gonna pause for the calls for 20 minutes. I think Don's got everything ready.
It's laid out, I think we don't have anybody there in the, break room. Come in, I think our folks have got it uncovered, ready to go. Council, if you all will go first.
All right. So you got hanging with us? get back to?
Never do that.
No.
No, we know this more. Jesse. Yeah, Jesse, you got 2 seconds. We're back on now, so, okay, they just informed me we're back. Thank you, everybody, for waiting on us. We're back in session again on our vision setting agenda for tonight. Next up, we have Ms. Jessica Manning, our finance director.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to go over kind of where we stand with the budget, kind of give an update on a few things.
They got the wrong hand.
Clicker, clicker. Budget for batteries.
Yeah, battery must be dead, it's left on.
Jessica, did you do that? Oh.
While we trying to get that right, I'd like to welcome in County Commissioner, Mr. Mark Smith, that represents Winterville. Glad to have you with us this evening.
And a part of Greenville, just so that.
Okay, yeah, and a part of Greenville.
All about Winterville.
I forgot all about that, yeah. Ready?
We think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Evan.
Okay, so we'll go over first the revenues for each fund. So starting with the general fund, currently revenues are on target for the current fiscal year. As of the end of January, we've completed 58% of the year. Revenues are currently at 64% of the total revenue budget, and that includes budgeted interfund transfers at 10.5% of the general fund revenues, and property tax revenue is currently at 99.5% of the budget.
I think it's Jessica.
Yeah, can you work that for her? Yeah, yeah, while she talk, can you? Okay.
Evan, can you just hit enter?
Well, I could if it was sponsored.
Is the whole thing frozen?
Oh, Lord.
Let's start with that.
Okay.
Try it now, Jessica.
All right.
Okay, vehicle property tax is currently on target for what's expected for this time of the year. Right now, we're averaging about 68,500 monthly, and that's slightly up from last year. Local option sales tax is currently 48% of the estimated budget. Utility franchise taxes are on target with relation to budget estimates. The general fund is balanced with a $386,000 fund balance appropriation, and that's down by $226,000 from the prior year. And that also includes an electric fund contribution contribution of $350,000. For the recreation fund, there's $139,000 used from retained earnings to balance the recreation fund budget. Recreation fund has collected 82% of budgeted revenues so far. Many of the program revenues are collected in the spring, and 78% of recreation revenues are transferred from the general fund. For the electric fund, sales revenues that are currently on target with expectations in the amount of $7,025,000. Right now, revenues are at 49%, with 58% of the year being billed, and that includes $823,000 from retained earnings to balance the electric fund budget. The water fund is on target right now with 51% for the year, and the current sales are at $808,000. And the water fund used $288,000 of retained earnings to balance the budget. Sewer fund sales are also on target with $1.4 million in sales, which is 52% of the sales budgeted for the year. And that fund was balanced with $26,000 from retained earnings. Stormwater funds, stormwater billings are $271,000 or 51% of the budget, and no funds were used from retained earnings to balance that budget. So we'll go over their expenditures next. For the general fund, at this point in the year, we've had 5 budget amendment changes in the general fund, and we would expect at least 2 more before the end of the year. In the general fund, the town has spent 49% of the funds that were appropriated, and we still have capital outlay purchases that need to be made. The recreation fund is approximately the same as last year, with 36% of the yearly appropriations having been spent. $476,000 of the $1.3 million budgeted has been spent. Capital spending for recreation this year is estimated around $43,000. For the electric fund, the purchase for resale line item is currently ahead of target with $1.7 million of the $4.2 million having been spent, and this is 42% of the budget for the year. The natural gas prices, they've remained steady over the last year, but fluctuations could cause effects to this line item. The total fund expenditure is at 48% of the appropriation for the year, and the total electric fund budget is around $9.6 million. For the water fund, the total expenditure is at 57% of appropriation for the year. Purchase for resale is at 38% of the budget for the year, with $260,000 of the $681,000 having been spent, and that total fund budget is around $2.6 million. The sewer fund currently has spent 69% of its annual appropriation. CMSD expense is 39% of the annual budget, and the total sewer fund budget is $3.3 million. And the sewer fund began paying back the $260,000 loan to the water fund this year, and it will be paid back over 5 years, $52,000 each year. The stormwater fund has spent 46% of its annual appropriations of $858,000. The largest appropriations in the stormwater fund, contracted services for $100,000, and the AIA grant, $260,000. Right now, for our fund balance status, our general fund unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 24 was 137.69%, and that's up from 2023, which was 124%. The town appropriated $386,000, down from $612,000 to balance the budget this year, and unassigned fund balance is $13,761,000, which is 75% of the annual operating expense. The fund balance percentage presented for the general fund does include the recreation fund, and that has a reserve of $181,000. Howell Fund has a fund balance of $572,000. The electric fund has unrestricted retained earnings in the amount of $8.3 million, or 87% of the annual operating budget. The water fund has retained earnings in the amount of $1.7 million, which is 68% of the annual operating budget. The sewer fund has retained earnings in the amount of $977,000, and that's 27% of the annual operating budget. The stormwater fund has retained earnings in the amount of $4.5 million, or 532% of the annual operating budget. Some factors for next year: we do have 4 loans that will be coming off the books. One of the electric fund for $98,000, that was for the substation modification. And the general fund, $101,000 for the recreation park expansion, and another one for $11,000 for the downtown land acquisition. One loan in the sewer fund, $32,000 for the sewer rehab project. Housing permits that were issued by the inspections department decreased to 73 in 2024. It was 160 in 2023. Permits are expected to be steady for next year with a possible increase in inventory. Currently, the unemployment rate for Greenville is 3.9%, which is down slightly from 4.1 for 2024. The CPI for the last 12 months was 2.9, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and last year it was 3.4. Right now, overall, economists are suggesting a relatively stable year for 2025 with some moderate growth. The Federal Reserve is anticipated to cut interest rates to around 4% in 2025. Inflation rates have peaked and should begin to trend down. The expected inflation rate for 2025 is 2.75 according to Statista, and 2.5% according to MarketWatch. Construction materials are expected to increase around 5 to 7% compared to last year. Sales and use tax has decreased slightly from last year. We're at 58% of the budget, so we're still on target. Lower inflation rates could cause sales tax refund to see a decline in this year. Expected increases in health insurance could be anywhere from the 3% to 9% range. Right now, 1 cent on the current tax levy yields $129,000. And just to keep in mind any cost of living raises. That's all I have for the update on the budget, and I think Terry was going to handle some unfunded commitments and projects.
So we normally have a section in our, Evan, would you bring mine? Thank you. Or you could continue if you would like. Thank you. We usually include some unfunded commitments and obviously projects in the budget document. We're doing things a little different this year in that this council may see the vision setting process a little differently. So I cut down on my presentation and we'll be doing less talking. And I know the mayor said that he wanted to start off the vision setting process. What I've done is, we'll get to the second slide here in just a second, but what I've done is listed some goals and projects that we have talked about, that we keep on here for constant and ongoing. You're gonna see these every year. But certainly they're in, number one, no specific order, certainly in no order of importance, and we can add to as the council sees fit. So Strategic planning, the town has never had a strategic plan. We need a strategic plan. We have been busy doing several departmental master plans, which are very critical. So we have focused on those first. And the strategic planning process will be pretty labor intensive, but we know that's important. And assuming council continues to consider that important. Looking for always additional ways to identify methods to increase our town revenue. I will say, Jessica didn't mention, but I'm sure Jessica and Anthony both, anytime you have an administration change in Washington, we're trying to let things settle down and see what it's going to look like from a financial standpoint. So a lot of news being pushed out, but certainly I think just kind of waiting for things to settle down and then see where we are. Obviously, we're always conservative in our budget estimates, and we anticipate continuing to do that. I know that council has wanted to focus on downtown redevelopment, including beautification, parking. Parking plans are underway. Anthony will be bringing you a project in February for consideration. Developing the market on the square proper, that's supposed to say property. I think it does say property. And then lighting. Now, I know the electric department went in and changed lots of lighting downtown in terms of wattage, bulbs, et cetera. Anthony, jump in. But I know there's an interest in particularly looking at the decorative lighting downtown, maybe facilitating a change in that and adding some additional decorative lighting in other places downtown. So just trying to kind of verbalize what I've heard council say and what we've discussed previously. Expansion of the workforce to handle growth, that is a challenge, and that's a discussion that will need to be had, and that's across the board. Obviously, succession planning, multi-purpose facility, and other associated park facilities. And I've denoted west side of town because we've talked a lot about needing facilities on the west side of town. The Railroad Street, Noble Canal, stormwater project. And then, of course, it's always good to denote that a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I know that you all want to move forward with concrete things, and so that's what we want to do, is work through this process with you. Continuing the list, again, no specific order. Cemetery expansion project, you will be bringing back, I think as I had reported previously, some cost estimates with respect to finishing out most of the expansion project. The thing I'll need from council tonight is some direction on whether or not we will pave those drives, because we need to know to include that cost moving forward. Anthony sent me a list, and Anthony, if I've left any out, I was just trying to get some of the major projects in for sewer, water, electric, and stormwater. We've got the Old Tar Road expansion, which encompasses all of our utilities, relocation thereof. Under sewer, outfall line to Jack Jones Road, Chapman Street line replacement. Underwater projects, Old Tar Road expansion. We've got some looping projects, line expansion project in a couple of locations. We need a new water tower. We've got to come into compliance with these massive lead and copper rules, which in and of itself is daunting. And electric, and again, these are not the only projects. These are major projects. Old Tar Road expansion, territorial expansion. Stormwater projects, Lee Street, Chapman Street, in addition to the previous one I mentioned, Railroad Street, and the Noble Canal drainage basin, which is a large-scale one. And then one you may or may not have remembered that we really need to talk about, and that is EMS. And the fact that currently EMS, though housed in the public safety building, it does not belong to us. It's a separately chartered kind of self-operating department. And things may be quickly coming to an end in the way they currently exist. And I know there's some interest in talking with the town. Chief, jump in if I misstate anything. But talking with the town, and then ultimately we'll need to talk with the county about the future of Winterville EMS and who retains what and who covers what. That's a very large project, and that time frame on that project is becoming much sooner rather than later. Let's see, did I miss anything? Oh, we've got future and amended services. I mean, we've got to continue to take a look at the services we provide, what services can we add, and what services can we amend to continue to provide feasible costs of doing business. I did want to include large-scale public building needs. We've got nice facilities. I had a list of these last year. These are not all-inclusive, but these hit the big ones. Our HVAC system or systems across all buildings need some attention, and there are some areas that need big attention, and they're very expensive. Town Hall, and part of what Anthony's gonna talk to you about in February, encompasses changes to the drive-through. There's a parking plan, dumpster relocation, et cetera, and we need to perform some maintenance on the walkway in front of Town Hall. Obviously, things like painting. This is a large building, and maintenance on the inside is needed. Public safety, they desperately need a new roof. Locations for future fire substations. I say stations because ultimately there's probably going to be the need for more than just one. Chief, jump in if I'm wrong. Fire training ground, finishing that out. Renovation of the current public safety facility, again, maintenance, painting, uplifting, upfitting. Parks and recreation, this is aside from the multi-purpose facility, but there's a maintenance building project, and it would be a new building for their maintenance area, and that's something that we're currently working on. Library, there's some cosmetic and some uplifting needed there. Front steps, we performed a temporary fix. Obviously, maintenance, carpet painting, et cetera. Lighting, that building needs a new roof. There are backflow preventer vault leaks that need to be repaired. So some substantial work to that building. Public Works, we've talked about that Public Works Electric, the administrative building, the area behind the administrative building and the maintenance shops, and then the new land we just purchased beside the operations center, that whole area really needs a master plan to try to determine what the best future looks like for where things need to be located, expansion, et cetera. We also, as you all know, have our own fuel pumps. They're old. We would like to perform a fairly significant overhaul of that whole area and what that looks like. And that encompasses some of the big items we had on our list. Certainly give those to you to work from, but we are ready to listen and to answer any questions you have about how you would like to prioritize moving forward.
Okay.
Water tower. Yeah, new water tower. Yeah, no problem.
And also I just wanted to bring to the council attention, also, I was on a teleconference call this week with NC BMO, and they had legislator Reed from Greensboro was speaking to us, and he was informing us to kind of be mindful of what they're saying about FEMA. And with FEMA maybe coming back to the states, and if it comes back to the states, then it may be pushed back down to municipalities and, all that. So, with storms, we know in this area here in eastern North Carolina, we can get a storm and, it could kind of wipe out your budget, so, and not having FEMA to get your recoup back, and you got to wait for the state. So, we got to kind of keep that all in mind too, while we thinking, kind of thinking outside the box. And so he was sharing it with us, kind of, to the mayors and council members that was on that call. Y'all need to keep that in mind, he said. But, so just something to think about, if we have to incur any expenses,
Well, and they tell us every disaster, FEMA is net reimbursement is never a guarantee. So we have to, that's why we work with you all collectively, and so seriously about fund balance and the percentage we have, because that equates to how many months, that we can operate in a disaster if we had no revenue coming in. You guys have done a great job, staff's done a great job, but every time we have an incident, we just never can be guaranteed we're gonna get funding. And that funding can be several years down the road after the disaster.
It lags as long as 5 years before we get reimbursed for all the work we do. So it's not even if they declare it emergency, it doesn't mean you're getting the money, like, to help with cash flow issues. It's more of like long-term.
We did also see at least an initial pause from out of Washington on grant funding and kind of a wholesale amount of monies. And then I heard that a judge, at least somewhere, blocked that. So obviously that's going to be in the court system. And in other words, how that affects us remains to be seen. But again, that's all part of just kind of trying to watch and see what happens and let things settle down to see exactly what we will be working with moving forward.
Yeah, I just think, really and truly, I think the next 3 months is gonna be kind of a watch and see, approach to what's going on right now.
It always
And
is.
so anytime, for us, this is my 4th president, and 2 of them I done worked under twice. So, it's always changes on the federal side. We always see it, and it usually kind of start ironing itself out around 9 or 10 months. You kind of start getting into a groove then, but before then, it's a lot of changes, a lot of different things change because they got their own set of rules, so, or how they want to do things. But then it start ironing itself out and kind of leveling itself out. But, we just in different times, so we got to keep that in mind, and keep that in mind for our town. When we get ready to look at our visions, and like I was saying before, the dinner is, where we see ourselves at in 2 years, trying to get some of these things done, and where we see ourselves in 5 to 7 years, down the road, what kind of vision we have for the town, what direction this town should be going in. So, I appreciate y'all putting this out here so we can kind of see some of the things that I think are tangible that we can get done in 2 years, and some that we can look at trying to work towards the 5 to 7 year goal. So, but don't let me do all the talking.
Last year, our trash collection fees were in the red, right? Are we still in the red? Are there other funds that we're in the red for?
So, yeah, we've made a lot of ground when it comes to the sanitation fees and everything, all the work that the council did there. The other funds that are questionable, water and sewer. You saw that the sewer fund only has 27% fund balance, I believe. We have done a rate study with the Environmental Finance Center through the School of Government, UNC Chapel Hill. We scheduled a presentation to come to the council with that. But as we look at the growth of Winterville, how difficult it is for us to get funding for these projects, it's going to be an uphill climb to figure out how to develop a strategy to figure out how to fund and finance and pay for these projects that are going to have to come to handle the growth that we've got coming. So those are the 2 funds that I feel like are probably the most critical The other thing we always have to be cognizant of is anytime we have, a change in administration or, change in the weather, when you have, these polar vortex items that come down and, you know, they can drive the natural gas price up and so how that affects us is our cost for electricity. And, so we're definitely gonna keep an eye on that as we move forward. Currently, our budget's okay, but that's something that we'll be monitoring very closely through the rest of the winter and move forward. But as far as that fund, stable, strong, with regard to the electric fund, really, until those numbers climb like they did a few years ago, there's no need to panic on that. Right now, I don't see us needing to put in a power cost adjustment, implementation on that at the moment. So definitely keep an eye on it.
Anthony, to follow up on Councilwoman Roberts' question about solid waste, we made a lot of headway with respect to the GFL contract. How about all of the cost for the rest, I mean, the true cost of the rest of the solid waste pickup we perform?
So, I mean, ultimately, the combination of the two, right? So we had the increase in the rate, and then we had the contract negotiation. Contract negotiation was very beneficial to the town because that kept you from having to raise the rate even higher. So those two components were, you know, critical in last year's conversation. And you know, I would have to say I haven't looked at what Mike can speak to how many loads of construction debris and stuff like that we've had to haul off compared to previous, about 3 a month. So you know what that was before?
Cliff. Please, thank you.
Good evening. Last month we had 0. Month before that we had 3. I think the month before that was 2. It's been averaging 2 to 3. Before that we were around 12 to 15.
These are scheduled pickups?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, so those, we do have folks scheduling to pick up. Some months there's none. Most months there's 2 to 3.
So that's been a big benefit to the town as well, as far as, because we were paying every single one of those loads out of pocket. Now, we've reduced the number of loads, and when we do have a load, it's paid for by the user. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to continue to just point out that we've got the contractual solid waste and recycling, then we've got the routes we run, and so that whole kind of figuring out where we were.
Yeah, we'll go back, and once we get some more solid numbers, and then we're half a year in, but.
Not to catch you off guard, I was just trying to get a sense of.
Take a look at those and reanalyze them and
Yeah.
see, what kind of margins we have, if we're breaking even.
Sure.
If we have, you know, plus or minus.
You know, I think ultimately the goal is for solid waste to pay for itself, water, sewer, electric, stormwater to pay for itself. Obviously, that's hard in certain times, depending on the kinds of projects you have, but we've come a long way from where we were from a solid waste perspective.
We will have, we're committed to this $8 million sewer project. So that's definitely a rate increase down the road once that project's complete, finalized, and we'll have to bring that back, make a determination of what that rate increase looks like to cover that debt service payment.
So that could be my vision for 5 to 7 years.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd be like the 2. That project's a short project, even though it's a very expensive project. The first phase should be done.
Which one is that?
That's the Chapman Street, and Church Street pump station rehab. We started with Chapman Street because that one was at capacity.
So that's ongoing now.
It's ongoing now, and the anticipation is June to be finished with that first leg of that. So then they'll move down to Church Street, and there's 2 other pump stations that are having electronic components switched out as well. So there's, I believe, 4 stations altogether, but the major overhaul are happening at 2 stations, the Church Street and Chapman Street.
Which reminds me, we've got the things going on in town with the sewer system, but we do also have the costs associated with our proportionate share of the treatment down at CMSD. And so we're grappling with, Commissioner Smith's on that board, Mayor's on that board, I'm on that board currently, grappling with looking at an expansion of that plant, what that looks like. It's gonna be terribly expensive, but force main improvements between here and Grifton, big expense. I think we're talking in the neighborhood, and gentlemen, correct me, but 26 million plus in needs down there. Obviously, that affects our budgetary amounts based on flow of what we pay into that. So we've got the projects here, but just keep in mind that we've got those associated costs that will also affect the budget.
As far as the expansion, will all 3 municipalities share equally, or will it be proportionate to the growth?
It's a great question. So currently, everything's based on flow, and the percentages that we are assigned every year is based on the 12 months flow for each jurisdiction, Grifton, Ayden, and Winterville, the 12 months before the year prior. That's worked well, and it's worked as we had all hoped and fought for that it would work. We really haven't gotten into detail about capital. Historically, and more recently, it's been based on the percentages. But when you're talking about as much expense as we've got, there's probably gonna have to be some creative ways. I don't know what all those are, but, and how those costs get attributed. But currently, nothing's based on population. It's all based on flow.
Was it one time they did,
Yes.
municipality got $100,000?
Well, fortunately, we're completely flow-based currently, which works for us. We pay for what we send. Poor Ayden has a challenge. They've got a significant infiltration inflow problem. So sometimes in wet years, they're paying even more than we're paying, and we have twice the population, if not a little more. So they've got a big challenge in how they address their system issues, but there's a new manager in Grifton we've met, and I think we'll be continuing to meet about creative ways to try to look at how these costs get spread across the 3 entities moving forward.
Yes, I want to ask you, you mentioned about EMS, what the future does hold for us if it's continue on the way it's heading right now. What are we looking at? A change within, do they have a time limit on when this change might come within the next 5 years, 10 years?
I think by the end of this budget year, we could potentially be needing to start talking about it.
At the end of this budget year.
In other words, we need to be talking about it.
Okay. Compared to the county and compared to us owning it, that's what we're speaking of we operate it ourselves or in the county?
Well, there's a district that encompasses the corporate limits of Winterville and a rural piece of the county.
Okay.
So much like when the fire department split, the town of Winterville retained the corporate limits, the rural district went to the community rural fire department.
Yes.
There will be, not for the same reasons, but there will be a similar discussion about what that looks like if we're interested in taking over EMS. I mean, there are lots of options, and of course, Commissioner Smith, there's only been some initial discussions, but nothing set in stone. Chief and I've talked several times about it, but that will be a significant decision for the town to make as to what we're willing to do, and then we have to talk to EMS and then also Pitt County because they have a piece of this as to how that might look. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I don't think it's far down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, kind of couple things from the presentation that I was looking at, trying to get my vision for 2 years on the path. Is looking at maybe the cemetery expansion is determine whether we want to pave that or do we just leave it rock or whatever. Could be one thing, or then the other thing is less focus on our downtown as far as our parking, because that's always what we've been hearing so much about, even from some of the owners downtown, and the lighting is another thing. So, you know, I think those are like things I think we can reach, you know, in our 2-year time period, if we're trying to set a goal, get some stuff done, you know, that could be attainable. You know, I'm looking to the council if y'all
Those are
have
some of the
something
things
else
that I
and we
wrote
can
down.
kind of prioritize things and, you know, and see where we go with.
I agree, not that anything is inexpensive by any means, but these are things that may be a bit more manageable, which would have a good impact. I mean, we do need to support our businesses in the downtown area. We've talked several times about, you know, the striping, the traffic flow, the lights. I remember when they went up, they were beautiful, we were very excited. They seem to have aged, I don't know if they can be upfitted or just, but those things I think are attainable and would make would go a pretty long ways in the image of the town and something that's visible and tangible to our residents and our small business owners as forward progress.
I can speak to the lights downtown. I think, Ron, about a year ago, we put several lights in the downtown area. I think specifically to the decorative lights in front of the downtown buildings. We identified that there are 2 that are out, that happened during the construction of the sidewalk project. And so, staff has looked at a way to re-energize those lights. It's not a situation that, where we can just go change the bulb. It's a matter of actually cutting asphalt, and doing a project to get in there and do some work, get new lines put in and reactivate those. And then from there, once that's done, then we can look at, you know, if we want to change those fixtures or something along those lines to make them, you know, newer looking or more uniform, or just if we like a classic look, we just need new ones, that kind of thing. So that's definitely, and I believe Ron had staff put lights up in the downtown area on a pole.
We did that light.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, we did add an additional light right there, in front of like where that cigar shop was. So there's actually 3 overhead lights on all 3 poles there on that little downtown area. I think that's where some of the complaints were going, trying to buy some time before we actually did the cutting of the concrete and the asphalt through there.
So to y'all's point, definitely can make some improvements in the near future, and I think it's important to make sure if that's inclusive enough, if that's enough, or, you know, exactly what the council wants. Is it to be broadened? Is it to just fix what's there? Is it, you know, how, you know, because we want to provide what's needed, but, you know, knowing what that scope looks like is important for us as staff.
Can I add one thing there? The 2 lights that aren't burning, if they were burning, it's not going to add that much more light to that area than is already there.
Because of the type of light.
Right, because of the load, it's not tall, it's kind of just for a sidewalk, you know, and the sidewalks are lit there. It just might not be the ideal that some residents or us all would like.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, what would be the recommendation that's to kind of lighten it up in that area? Just, yeah.
I do think that there are some varying opinions on what that looks like and how much is desired. There's a safety factor, but as we push out to some of these parking areas from the actual downtown proper, you know, there's been some concerns expressed about if employees park at these outward areas or even patrons walking to the downtown area. So we can certainly bring back recommendations, but it's helpful to know collectively what the council would like to see in terms of the lights that currently exist, what they look like, how much they shine, you know, so forth and so on.
I think to make that decision, like, we would need to know, now, since those lights were put in, I'm sure we have advanced a great deal. There are now LED lights and different types of things. What is available? Some of the appeal, I guess, of those lights is that they are aesthetically pleasing and they do enhance the downtown. So if we could continue to have something aesthetically pleasing that perhaps is more purposeful in lighting the pathway, what does that look like? How much does it cost? Having those types of things answered would help us to say, yes, let's clean these up, put new globes on them, or let's redo, let's purchase new ones.
Bring back some options.
Correct.
And also in terms of adding, whether it's the parking area at the market, which is a public space and available for anyone to use. And as we add and mark spaces along railroad, across the railroad track, further down towards Tyson, whether we want to illuminate, take it further out so that you can see better. I mean, that's sort of, we can look at those types of things if council's interested in that too.
I think we should, because that's gonna also increase safety. Because if you're gonna look at extending parking, you wanna make sure it's safe parking. So therefore, you're gonna need a lighting to be extended.
We'll definitely take a look at that. We'll also need to keep in mind, most of this area is in the CSA right away.
Right.
That'll be, I'm not saying that stops anything, I'm just saying it makes it more difficult.
And costly.
We have to abide by the rules, so we'll certainly see what we can do in those areas and what that cost looks like and how that changes the project from being on areas that are outside the right of way.
Now, also too, as far as paving that section down in there, what's the deal on that? I'm just
Paving what
asking.
section?
On the other side of the railroad, have it been paved? New paving,
I just want to make sure I'm on.
Not right in front of the downtown buildings?
Not in front of in front of the restaurant, tiebreakers and all that through there.
In front of the small businesses on that side of the tracks.
Yeah, so, there hasn't been a plan to upgrade that, or, a large portion of this fix. I think what had been talked about was, putting a skim over it so that, you can't see the lines and stuff.
Right.
down there,
Oh,
but-
we talking about the park where it used to be the parking?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
Because
well, maybe that's what I'm.
when you were talking about, I thought, well, it hadn't been that long before we repaved that when we.
But see, when you go
You're
through
talking
there now,
about
you
the
can
old
still,
parking,
right, you
yes,
still
we
see
just
the
talked about,
lines
we
and
just talked
all
about that, yeah.
So, the ideal thing is, when we bring out the plan, in February meeting, for some of the downtown parking changes, is to incorporate, once we do that, then incorporate the striping and other areas
Right.
to expand additional parking in downtown. So that's what staff had talked about as a way of kind of doing it as one project.
Okay.
So a quick question also, so something that's come up a couple of times was the cemetery. Are we leaving the rock, are we doing the pavement? What is our price difference, and what is, obviously, it would be much nicer to have it paved, and it's something that, where are we at with that?
We'll bring that forward, but we didn't include that because historically, up until more recently, it was, we're just gonna rock it and leave it be for now. But because things aren't gonna get any less expensive, and there is some value in going ahead and finishing it out, if you all will just direct us to take a look at bringing back prices on that, because by the February meeting, which is what, a week or so away, then that hopefully can give you what you need to make a final decision on the paving of the drives.
Well,
like to see that.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna ask Cliff something. As far as, like the cemetery, when they like, the paving starts and paving in, because ain't it a certain period of time or something?
So like we're paving one subdivision tomorrow.
Okay.
So it strictly depends on the weather. If it's cold like it was last week, the plants aren't gonna run. But as long as the weather's over 50 degrees, usually we can do about what we wanna do. So it's strictly weather dependent. But of course, the spring, summertime, that's the hot times of the month, of the year.
Okay.
So we will have that back for your consideration for a February meeting.
And you mentioned something a while ago, and it's a good point. We all know things are not getting any cheaper. And we've done a pretty good job here recently, I think, in acquiring land.
Yes.
Because once it's gone, there's not gonna be any more. I think that's, although it's an expensive venture, we need to continue to challenge our landman here.
That's his name now.
Yes, he is the landman, to continue to look at that, because, and this came up in our meeting with McGill.
Yes.
You might purchase and you think, oh my gosh, when you do it, we're about $1 million, but, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, it's worth $3 million. If you never use it, you're making a $2 million profit. But once it's gone, it's gone, so.
And I do think you're gonna hear in February meeting, during the McGill presentation, land banking.
The landman,
Yeah.
okay.
The landman will know what's to lie before him, so.
And also too, you had mentioned in your, I think about the pumps, the gas pumps, is that something that can be redone now, to get them,
Yeah, so there is some funds in this year's budget to get started on that project. Current situation, basically, we've got quotes, so, but it was kind of late last year. We finished the electric building and the polars building, and now this will be the next project, as well as some paving behind the operations center, because we're out of parking for staff.
right.
So those will be the next two things. Hopefully, we pour concrete pad for people to pump gas on. Right now, they're kind of out in the mud and in the rocks when it's, messy in this bad weather. So getting the new pumps in and getting concrete pad poured, and then if there's enough money, I'd add additional asphalt.
So could we look at that along, can we group that together with the cemetery as far as the paving, getting price all together? I'm just asking, would you look at that way, or do you need to do it separately?
I do want to mention, does that project involve taking out the animal kennels, dog kennels?
So that was discussed when we were talking about potentially putting a recycling container in, but it certainly can be included. If we're no longer 100% no longer going to be using those, it's certainly be good to get rid of it.
I think the answer to your question is yes, we can look in this 2-year window, but again, that just brings back the need to continue to work with the county to see if we can strike a deal and a contract for animal control services.
Okay. But the reason I say that, because when you start looking at pricing for asphalt, if you can kind of get all your projects and do it in, we can get a better price.
So as we roll into the spring, we'll be getting quotes for basically all the projects we're going to be doing for this paving year, and then we'll be able to get a per unit price, and then once we get that, we can apply it basically anywhere in town.
Okay.
As far as all these things and all the visions that we're talking about, all these are great, right? Terry, I heard you say that the town has never had a strategic plan.
Not to my knowledge now.
Okay, and so I would like to propose that we create and develop a strategic plan within or before these 2 years, because all the things that the council, the mayor, all of us are saying is great, but if we have not integrated this into a strategic plan, then we know where we're going, but we don't really have a vehicle or a roadmap to get to those strategies and goals and things of that nature. So I would say that with this vision setting meeting, we need a strategic plan, because that will help us, again, with the trust of our citizens, and then also how to work best with our stakeholders, such as, the chamber and things of that nature. So I think that those things should be added in the strategic plan, the downtown and all those things. So, and I know that you said it's labor intensive, but how are we utilizing our League of Municipalities? Because we do have that as a resource that maybe they could help us with, or help you all or us with a template, or someone that can help us with the design, so it won't be so labor intensive. Because I understand as a town, there is capacity.
Sure, and I wouldn't want to suggest that we do it internally. So we have previously reached out to the league and their services for strategic planning. So about the time we were trying to get that off the ground, they went through some wholesale changes with personnel, as we all do. So it's definitely worth reaching back out to them. They have preferred partners, as you well know, that potentially they already have, that would make it easier to get a consultant on board to help us through with that. So that's what I meant by labor intensive, certainly not us doing it, but just the community meetings and the meetings with council, that kind of thing, but it's important and we need it. So, yes, we've reached out to the league on a few services, and we'll try to re-engage them on the strategic planning, bring that back, what that looks like, find out who the preferred partners are now, if they're still the same ones, and then try to give a sense of what the cost would be, so we can budget for that.
So,
Because no, you're fine, because it sounds like we know the what and we know the why.
Right.
But we need to get to the how, and that is the strategic plan.
Right.
If our town has never had a strategic plan, then that needs to be like at the forefront.
so that's what I was getting ready to say, so that should be number one, what you're saying, and then go through. And that's what I'm trying to get at, I want some, so we can know where we need to be at.
Well, and I think there was a time, not just us, but lots of smaller entities and even larger ones, you have plans done and you put them on the shelf, and sometimes it's hard to put them into practice. But I really am proud of the way in recent years the departments get their comprehensive or their master plans together, and they're putting those things in place. And so I think now is a really good time where we are to bring that sort of overall vision, as you say, put it down in writing, decide what's important, and then figure out the how.
Right, and that is kudos to staff for getting their plans as far as programmatic,
Yes.
but they need to funnel up.
That's right.
To whatever our
That's right.
strategic plan and systems change is going to be.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
I do have a comment, and just want to echo Dr. Harrell in terms of having a concrete strategic plan, because we know that in any organization, there is a mission, and that mission is meeting things immediately. And then there is a vision with an overall goal. And so with an overall goal, we need a strategic plan, but we must not miss the fact that any plans that we are making, whether it's fiduciary on behalf of the people of the town, creating course and new developments, we need to have some sort of periodic listening sessions to actually hear what the people of this town want. And going through the presentation, I heard at least 25 things that are needed within the town. But are we tapping back into the people of the town and actually seeing how to prioritize this based on their needs? We know what staff needs, and that is great, and they function on behalf of operating and keeping the town running, but we still have to tap back periodically to hear what the town needs as we all represent them. So that is something that I wanted to speak to. As we are doing a vision setting, we need to even have more of the town here presently, because we are speaking on behalf of them, but they are not here. There goes to transparency and advertisement and things of that nature. One key thing that I heard several times throughout last year was revisiting the recycling. And I know that GFL, and it has been successful in terms of revenue, but when we tap back into what is bothersome to a wide spectrum of the community, that is that. And just speaking to that as some time and listening to them would be greater overall beneficial. So that is something that I wanted to just let my voice as a council be heard, because we listen to all of what we need, and that is valid. But at the end of the day, the people of this town are what we're doing this for and who we were elected by, and we're speaking on behalf of. So that is what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
It's a very important point, and I think that's the wonderful thing about the way these plan processes roll out is the community component and the opportunity for people through, whether it's charrette meetings or whatever mechanism is put in place, depending on the plan, for the public to have input. So that is what makes those processes really successful.
Okay, so let me just get it clear for myself, is that strategic plan, correct? Cemetery, cemetery project.
Yep.
Downtown area.
Downtown beautification, as far as the parking and the lighting. So those are some things that we know right now that we can look at, getting to you all, well, y'all can get back to us.
Fuel pump, I also have fuel
And
pump
fuel- yeah,
project,
fuel pump
and
project.
hopefully animal control services. I
Right.
mean, that sort of was a spinoff of our
Right,
conversation,
of
but
that, so-
this is in the 2-year window.
Yeah, in the 2-year one.
I'd like to add the library also, the repair work that need to be done at the library. It's very important that we keep the library facility up to a good standard, because it represents not only just one grade, but everybody, all ages, really use the library. So I like to echo on the library, make sure that we place that on that radar also.
And then also, the EMS, I know that you
Yes,
said that that
yes.
was like very.
Yes,
on
that's
top.
gonna,
Okay.
thank you.
And I'd like to see the next steps as far as securing our multi-purpose facility.
Okay, and I do think,
Of course,
I'm sorry.
looking at areas, on the west side for recreation, where we're looking at land acquisitions.
So I do think next steps will be discussed for the multipurpose facility itself, in the February meeting. And again, I know that the landman and his work in securing some land on the west side is critical to being able to then start discussing what kinds of facilities we could start with.
Land becomes available.
Right. I know Anthony keeps his eyes open and is working with folks to try to take advantage of particularly large swaths of land as they become available, so.
All right. With that being said, comments from Councilwoman Hawkins. You have any comments, Councilwoman Hawkins?
I sure do. Yes, I do. I think that tonight was really good and crucial to us putting together what we're looking forward to for 2025. I think that with a strategic plan, we will be more effective by the end of the year in reflecting on what went well, what we could do better. I'm going to speak to, as we are talking about our vision, we need to keep transparency in mind to ensure that the citizens, the staff, and the council are all aware and aligned of things that are going on, to ensure that we all, when we say a slice of the good life, that everybody understands clearly what the slices are in terms of accountability, measuring up to accountability for this year in terms of the vision. What does accountability look like? And how are we applying it through our organization, as well as prioritizing. And that goes back to the strategic plan in terms of prioritizing the processes and looking at the goals stepping forward to completion. So in all of that, it is acronyms for TAP, and how we can tap into all of our community needs. And that is what I needed to say for us to have a great and a successful vision setting, part 1 and part 2 for this year.
Thank you. Dr. Harrell.
Just want to say thanks to the staff for your presentations, for being like very clear and concise with your presentations, and also just ready to be working in collaboration with all of you all. Thanks.
Councilwoman Smith.
I know that we always say thank you to one another, and sometimes, we do appreciate each other. But I found in our recent meeting with the McGill group, they were very complimentary to our staff and to us as a council about where we are and some of our long-range planning and the foresight in some of our land acquisition and where we are with our strategic plan so far, and our thoughts and those things in other departments. And there were lots of comments to both staff from outside sources and to the council, and I thought that was very meaningful to have others recognize the great work that is done here in the town. I wanted to make sure to mention that because everybody wasn't able to be there. I wanted to make sure you knew that you were recognized outside as well as inside.
Councilwoman Robinson.
I just, thanks to everybody, echo everything's been said about staff, about us too, about us being serious about what we want to do. Thank you.
Councilmember Wade.
First, I'd like to thank our citizen, and that's who we represent. Secondly, our staff that we have here in this great small town or big town, and thank this council. I think we have a great board, and we're going to continue on working together. And lastly, our general funds. We're talking about, wow, in 2023, it was 124%. In 2024, it went from there up to 137%. And we still operate first class.
Some people will say that's too much money in the bank,
That's okay.
but I think what it does is it puts us in a healthy position to be prepared for those disasters, number one, but number two, be able to occasionally, and I do underscore occasionally, fund things and help fund things along the way without any detriment to our financial picture.
I agree, and also, I still like for us to do some things,
Yes, absolutely.
but still, you still have to prepare yourself for the unexpected. And the unexpected can happen at any time. So,
Definitely.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the council. I thank y'all for tonight. I think it's a big turnaround from last year. I think we're on the right track. I think we're gonna do well with this right here. As I said in January, it's Winterville. It's the W and the E. That means we all in this together. And I thank the staff for what they do. Of course, always thanking the staff. But again, I think tonight is the roadmap, as Dr. Harrell said. This is the roadmap where we need it. So I'm just glad we had a great night. Now, with that being said, can I get a recess?
Let's go one more thing, and I'll be very short. We have went through a lot of tests in the last couple of years, and we had great representation. And I want to say to our town attorney, thank you.
Thank you, you're certainly welcome, appreciate that.
Now, can I get a recess?
Move for recess.
Second.
All right. Good night.
Thank you all.
Appreciate that.
3 hours.
Good stuff.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, take up, what, 30